my raison d'etre, my dharma, if you like, is to tell my story, because I was a man who was massively curious, very excited about being in the world, and that was interrupted and hijacked at the age of 11 when I was sexually abused. So my will or my autonomy was stolen from me at a young age by somebody that implanted a parasite, a cognitional parasite. So the cognition or the belief was that nobody can be trusted. The world can't be trusted. Not even the people you love, they can't be trusted. That was what was planted in me as a parasite at the age of 11. That created depressions, it created dissonance, it created psychotic jealousy, self-harm, sexual self-harm. Later on, I displaced it into prolific violence. People have an idea that I'm a bit of a Robin Hood character, but I was actually a very insecure and violent guy. If anybody out there has a fantasy about me being a great bloke, I used to kick people's teeth out. I wasn't, I was, at the back of it, I was a nice guy, but I was violently insecure and I had enough skills to do a lot of damage. So that was all a byproduct or a displacement of the abuse that happened when I was young. So, but I remember suffering massively with depression because of this, with fear, with anxiety. At the peak of it, if my wife left the room, I believed she was betraying me, because why wouldn't she? I'm a piece of shit. People that love me have betrayed me. This was my grooming. I was gaslighted to believe that. It's a very powerful parasite. And that parasite, that you could say that it's like a quantum entanglement. When two particles get entangled, they can be separated across the universe, but they still communicate with each other. But they don't even need to communicate. They're not seen as separate. So this person, when he abused me, entangled himself with me. So even though I didn't see him for 20 years and we were separated by many miles, he was still abusing me in his absence. He was still abusing me remotely, because if I had a feeling about him, it would rouse all sorts of pornographic imagery, violent pornography, sexual pornography.
Right.
And this person would abuse me remotely from a distance. So I was quantumly entangled with this person. And the only way to untangle is what they say is we never thought we'd come quantum entanglement, but the only way to disentangle is to become more entangled in something else.
Right.
So
Okay.
rather than be entangled with the abuse of this person, I became entangled with curiosity,
Right.
with inquiry. I was an autodidact. I went out there and thought, I'm going to learn. But the key to my learning, Andy, was that I wanted to share the learning, because I remember thinking,
right,
there must be a lot of kids out there just like me, with a family, with kids, who are lonely, who are lying in bed, terrified of another day, but not quite sure why they're terrified. And then ashamed of the fact that they're terrified because maybe I'm a lump, or, I'm a man, or I've got all of these cultural expectations.
yeah,
And I'm following my wife around the house like a puppy because I'm so afraid. I'm like Mesna when he climbs Nanga Parbat. I'm too scared to go up. I'm too scared to go down. I'm too scared to stay where I am. When Mesna was trapped on Nanga Parbat, the mountain, he said he was afraid to live. He was afraid to be away from his wife. That's what I felt. So the idea of telling your story is saying, you could say I'm a Buddha Dharma. Buddha Dharma is somebody that's escaped from a burning building, and recognize that there are still people stuck in the building, but they don't know the way out.
right.
So I'll go back into the building to say, I found a way out. So that's basically what I do. I just say, these are my stories. This is what I've learned. This is how I got out of depression. This is how I got out of fear. This is how I got out of small living. And you don't have to follow if you don't want to. I'm just saying, these are my tips. This is what I've learned. And so you pass those stories on, and those stories, they literally contain spirit. So when I talk, when I'm, they call it Kota Dharma Gaku or Heka, the use of magic sound. I'm using sound to exchange soul for soul. So if you're listening, or if there's some kid out there listening now who's troubled, he will, if he feels inspired, it means it means he has received spirit. To be inspired means to be in spirit. So he's received spirit from me or through me, and that spirit will give him enough inspiration to start making inquiries, to start studying, to start expanding his awareness, because everything they want is out there. Everything anybody wants is out there, but people are so entangled in their own small beliefs or their fears or their culture or the mores, their class. They're so indentured into these kind of invisible ideologies that they can't expand their consciousness. They daren't. It's this belief is so solid that it's creating a reality every day that they don't want. So the idea of me telling my story and you telling your story is that we send this spirit out into the world. One of the agreements when you have a covenant with God is that I will receive information from you, but I will give it out to whoever asks for it. So you put that out there in the hope and in the knowledge that somebody at some point will open this up and it will be a revelation.
This is the Andy Steele Podcast.